Time for a Bears Now mailbag. It is NFL Combine a week. I'm Harrison Graham. RBs matter. You're damn right they do. If the Bears land Trey Smith and Drew Dalman in free agency, would you be open to Ashton Jeanty at number 10 overall? I think the door cracks open if you add 2 starters to your offensive line in free agency. If it's less than 2 new starters, I think it's a little tougher of a sell to the fan base to go running back in the first round. I love Ashton Jeanty. I do think he is a full tier ahead of the rest of the running back class, which, by the way, is a pretty damn good running back class. But if you enter the draft with Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones coming off injury, and only 1 new starter, I think it comes a little tougher. Now, I do think they'll sign at least 2 new starters in free agency, so that does give you flexibility, and I think that's the word we should keep preaching. Flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. If you are Ryan Poles, you want to be flexible entering the draft. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself into a certain position at number 10 overall. So hopefully they sign at least 2 new starters on the offensive line, potentially an edge rusher as well, especially after cutting DeMarcus Walker, and then you could truly go BPA at 10 within reason based on your big board. What say you? Would you take Ashton Jeanty at number 10 overall? Type Y for yes, type N for no. The door becomes open for me if they do what I just said. Otherwise, it's a little tougher. I would call it unlikely right now, but certainly not slamming the door shut on that possibility. All right, DC Viper, do you think now, with the Bears having their franchise quarterback and hopefully a long-term head coach, they could put all their focus on the new stadium? Well, first of all, you can do these things simultaneously. Now, was Kevin Warren's energy taken away from the stadium pursuit second half of this season and during the coaching search? Absolutely, because they entered this season with playoff aspirations and then they lost 10 games in a row. That probably took him away from the stadium stuff a little bit. Like, okay, we got to start doing background info on coaches. We're firing a coach mid-season for the first time ever. He definitely had some influence on that decision. But, like, Ryan Poles isn't pursuing the stadium. Ben Johnson, like, these guys are focusing on the roster and the team. Kevin Warren is in charge of the stadium pursuit with, counsel and guidance from George McCaskey and people on his staff. So you can do both, but, like, you're never going to have full focus on it because, like, the GM's not doing it. Like, it's a different department. Business department, football, construction department. Ryan Poles, I'm not saying he doesn't care, but I don't think he gives a damn about the stadium right now, because even if they announce tomorrow they're building, that's 3 years away. If he doesn't do a good enough job, he's not going to be sitting in that stadium when it opens. So I think it's 2 separate things going on at once. Lacora Victor, is Poles interested to upgrading left linebacker over Sanborn? I don't know what you mean by left. They mostly play nickel, so 2 linebackers. Middle and weak side is what teams would call it, but in a 4-2-5, it really doesn't matter too much. I don't know. I think Sanborn's a great third linebacker. I think he's a serviceable number 2. Like, you could make the argument that Sanborn at $3 million a year versus Edmonds at $18 million. Like, you'd rather have Sanborn and use that extra $15 million elsewhere. I'm hoping Tremaine plays better under Dennis Allen, because I think just the way his contract is, you only save $4 million if you cut him. I'd rather just keep him in that case. Take on the $17 million cap hit this year, then make a decision next offseason. If Sanborn's cheap, 2 years, $6 million, $3 million bucks, I think as a number 3 linebacker, that's a fair price. So I would like to keep him. Now, if he balloons to like $5, $6, $7 million, and some team's offering him a starting role, you probably let him go in that scenario. So I do think it just comes down to a price tag. He is restricted, so I believe I'd have to double check. I think he is. The Bears would have the right to match, depending on if he signs a offer sheet from another team. All right, subscribe to us here at Bears Now. We have full off-season coverage. We're talking the latest Bears news, rumors, free agency, draft coverage, combine content all week long. We put up YouTube shorts from the combine throughout this week, so be sure to check those out. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. Don't miss any of it. All right, Christian, I think Walter Nolen is a real possibility at 10. His get-off is incredible. Seems like a Dennis Allen guy. Yeah, I think he's in play. I think with a strong week at the combine, we're filming this Monday. Assuming he tests, we might have clarification on that depending on when you're watching this. I think if he has a good week, he's in play at number 10. I really do. I think the Niners at 11 would be interested, so I think he'd be in that range. And that is an area, like if you're comparing him, or if you're saying he'd be a 3-tech guy, I like Javon Dexter, and he's improved with his get-off. That's been a weakness, though. His get-off, and what get-off means is how quickly are you firing off out of your stance when the ball is snapped. The great ones basically time the snap, and they are off the ball right away, quicker than the offensive lineman, or at least right there with them. At times, Dexter is, I don't want to say a half second, but a tenth of a second slow, and that makes a big difference. So I like Walter Nolen. I think he has huge upside as an interior pass rusher, and I think he could be a guy that you could absolutely take at 10 or via a small trade down. Henry Forte, how do you view the center of the draft since it's not a strong enough class to draft one if we don't get Drew Dalman? Well, I think you look at like the Gray Zables. I think there's a strong chance he plays center in the NFL. He'll certainly be an interior guy. Does Wyatt Mylan play center? Where does Jared Wilson out of Georgia end up going in the draft? He could sneak into day 2 with the strong combine, or round 2 with the strong combine. So, those are some names. Certainly not a high volume. There could be a few other guys that kick inside and play center, but I think if they don't get Dalman, they'll do one of two things. One, they'll view Ryan Bates as a stopgap option, which I would not like. I would cut him. Or two, they re-sign Coleman Shelton on a cheap 1-year deal to at least give themselves insurance if they can't get one in the draft. So I do think they will have plan Bs after Dalman in free agency, but we'll have to wait and see it all play out, obviously. All right, we got some FGB t-shirts available at chatsports.com/FGB. Click and shop today. That link is in the comments and the description. Come on, you want to represent one of these. Get yourself an FGB t-shirt, baby. All right, Medtroid. Could they draft Tyler Warren? Would be a great receiver, great blocker. I'd call him a good blocker, not great, but certainly could improve. And just a tremendous weapon. Yeah, I've got to open myself to this as a potential option at 10. And most people are like, what? Colt Kmet. Have you seen the tight ends behind him in recent years? Like, if you pair this guy with Kmet, number one, he could be better right away. That's not impossible. Even if he's not, though, like, he's a huge upgrade what you've had behind him, and he'll grow as a player from his rookie year and beyond. I think I kind of view this the same thing as the Jeanty question earlier. If you add 2 starters to your offensive line and at least 1 edge rusher in free agency, I think Warren, you have to view him as a guy at 10 because I think he's a top 7-ish player in this draft. I think if you just go pure talent in this draft, I think you look guys who I would take over Warren just based on their talent. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, maybe Tet McMillan, and then it's probably Warren. He might be the 5th best player. Jeanty as well. I'd take Jeanty just as a pure prospect. I'll go Jeanty. I would put him 3rd or 4th. Slide down McMillan. So what? He's the 6th best player in the draft. I think he's better than both the quarterbacks. If he's there at 10, you have to consider it. Like, hey, he's really, really good. All right, Trump is a Bears fan. Didn't know that. Would you trade down to 14 or 15, draft an edge if we sign Trey Smith and Dalman in free agency? In my opinion, it would take Mike Green or Mykel Williams. I would take 14 or 15. Yeah, I think both those guys at 14 or 15 would be good value. I don't think they're out of play at 10 either, by the way, for what it's worth. Again, I'm very open to the trade down 3 to 6 spots if the right trade's available. Obviously, you could get on phones and no one will trade with you potentially. So, it's takes 2 to tango. That's a phrase we commonly use here. But yeah, I mean, if you traded down from 10 to 14, got an extra 3rd round pick or something, got Mike Green or Mykel Williams or one of the defensive tackles like a Walter Nolen, perhaps, yeah, I think that would be fantastic work. And then you have an extra day 2 pick, which is kind of the sweet spot of this draft. Name a player that you're watching for at the NFL Combine this week. Who is someone you are keeping a close eye on? Or if you have a list of players, drop that list down in the comments below. Huge week for a lot of these prospects as they're looking to make a name for themselves. All right, we got time for a few more. Miles, who do we look out for at the Combine? Well, right on cue there. I'm looking at these running backs to see how they test in the not just the 40, but the short area quickness, 3-cone, the shiftiness drills. the explosive drills, like the vertical and all that stuff. Like, how explosive are they? I think you'll see like these cluster of running backs separate themselves a little more based on how they test. And then the defensive linemen and the offensive linemen. I'd say trenches, running back, and tight ends. I think those are the most fun position groups in this draft, and obviously positions that the Bears could use. So I would say those 3 to 4 position groups. Sean the Savage, who do you think will be the Ryan Poles move since he tends to sign someone no one expected at all? Who did he sign last year that no one expected? I mean, I guess the Keenan Allen trade kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know. I guess one would be if they signed a running back. A guy that they view as a starter or a number 2. I really don't like this free agent running back group that much. One guy I'll list it as a wild card. He's restricted is Jordan Mason with the 49ers. Could they sign him to an offer sheet? He was pretty good with McCaffrey out last year. But again, I'd rather just draft somebody. So I don't know. It's a good question, Sean. If you guys have any, drop that name down below. All right, appreciate all the questions. If you didn't get yours answered or if you have more, you know where to find me on social media, at HGrahamNFL on Twitter, same handle on Instagram. Fire in those DMs. We're posting Bears content over there as well. It's at HGrahamNFL on both Instagram and Twitter.